Hello, I'm Dr. Melanie Dean, and today we're going to take a deeper dive into looking at how to transform multiple layers of emotion within yourself in order to be fully powerful. And I'm going to share with you the advice that my departing brother gave to me just before he asked for his life support machines to be turned off. And his life advice has been a mainstay in my life and is so pertinent to this process of transforming multiple emotions. So my brother's advice was, enjoy the journey, Mel, he said to me. Actually, he didn't say it to me, he lettered it to me. In my book, The Hidden Power of Emotions, I shared a little bit of the story of my brother who came down with ALS disease. They commonly call it Lou Gehrig's disease. And it was a disease that paralyzed him completely. And toward the end of his days, he was paralyzed except for his eyeballs. So the only thing he could move was his eyeballs. Nothing else moved on his body. And he was on life support, a breathing machine that did the breathing for him. And we would communicate with a letterboard. And in the letterboard, he would blink when I pointed to the letter that he wanted to say, yes, that's the correct letter for building the word that he wanted to build. So we went letter by letter, word by word to communicate. And he had communicated with me that this journey for being paralyzed and being stuck in this body that couldn't do anything, he wanted it to be over. So he had communicated with me, Mel, would you please ask the doctors to turn off my life support? So, of course, I did that. Very challenging experience. And the 4 years of taking care of him during this decline was very challenging. Before we turned off the life machines, and I asked him, what do you have to share with me, Paul? Some life wisdom to help me go forward in a good way in life. And he lettered to me, enjoy the journey, Mel. Now, I knew that he meant two things. He meant to enjoy that I'm alive. He meant that. And he also meant that the process of life is a journey. It's a process. And enjoy it. Don't just throw it away. Let's have some enjoyment with this process. He was all about joy. And he was all about living life to the fullest. And he wanted to make sure that I knew to do that, to enjoy the process. So that's so appropriate today. And the reason why it's so appropriate when we're talking about multiple layers of emotion is to enjoy the process of that transformation. Enjoy the process of feeling the change within yourself from something that isn't working for you to something that is. So every day in my 4-year time of taking care of my brother, I had to do that journey. And it wasn't until he lettered those words to me, enjoy the process, Mel, enjoy the journey, that I knew I had been doing that very thing in the process of taking care of him. I would come home every day at the end of the day absolutely exhausted. I also had much bitterness and resentment that I was losing him. It felt very unfair. I had a lot of sadness and a lot of disappointment, and I couldn't see how life was going to be happy without his bright spirit in my life. So every day was my own challenge in how to transform the layers of emotion in that and to move into a more powerful place inside of myself, to be the person I wanted to be. Now, I wanted to be love in action with him. I wanted to be able to have the loving relationship with him that I could have while he was here on this earth. That was hard, that was challenging, taking care of him physically. But the biggest challenge was emotionally. How do I stay open and allow my full love to come through, even though I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm bitter? So what I did every day is what I encourage you to do in working your power. In the last podcast, the first part of this segment about being able to be powerful with multiple layers of emotions, I shared with you 3 steps. And the first step was using your quiet time every day to get into that place of really knowing what you want. Being calm, being quiet, being clear. You will be producing those gamma brain waves and your emotional energy waves that are smooth, evenly spaced, and syncing you with the guidance you need to transform the difficult emotions. So when you're in this place and you now have the ability to be in touch with intuitive guidance to make further, deeper transformations, that's what you do in your second step. You ask yourself and you look inside, what else is going on with me? And you use that time to get in touch with your intuitive self that says, this is how you can transform that. You'll have an idea, you'll have an inspiration, you will feel calm and clear knowing of how you can make a change in that and transform that. That is your third step, is paying attention to that intuitive guidance and being able to transform that. Let's look at some strategies, deeper dive into how to make these transformations with multiple layers of your emotions. I remember I had a woman back in my counseling days that came to see me, and I had been seeing her regularly, and she came into the session just hot to trot. She had lots of emotions that she knew about, she was aware of, that were right on the surface, that were angry and frustrated, and she was so upset because she had been to see a client of hers and that client wasn't paying her for services she had rendered. So she was really mad. Now, in her process, again, it's a process, she could readily identify that she had these big negative emotions, but she couldn't in that moment calm down enough to make a transformation in them. So we talked through the process again of how she could do that at home when she was in a quieter place. So at home, she got in touch with how to calm her mind and body. She used her strategies for calming her mind and body, and she shared with me later how this process worked for her. So in calming her mind and body, and she used her meditation strategies, she was so aware of what was going well in her life. She was aware of the business success she had, gratitude for being able to work for herself from her home, having her own business. It was going well. She was doing well, and she was so grateful for that. She was producing calm, even, smooth waves of emotion around that aspect of her life. And then this issue related to this particular client who wasn't paying her came up. And she's then aware, I've got other emotions here that are very strong about that. Those emotions were so strong, the resentment and the anger and the bitterness and the fear about what this would mean financially for her. Those emotions were so strong, and there were so many of them, that she shared with me that it was actually a process that took quite a while. It took probably 3 weeks, she said, for her to move through the multitude of those emotions in order to be able to slowly transform them. So each day in her quiet time, she was very purposeful in getting in touch with what are the emotions there that are not yet where I want them, being powerful with smooth, even waves, where I can be in touch with the guidance and the best decisions for what's for me to do in that. Had she stayed with lack of awareness on that and not gotten in touch with those jaggedy emotions, she would have been missing out on power in her life to get fully everything she wanted. So she shared with me that that daily process of checking in with herself and asking herself, what other emotions are present for me and what do I need to work on today? So her joy came about in asking that question every day of herself. And she shared with me that there were many ideas and inspirations on how to proceed. And each day she had a little bit greater clarity. Sometimes she had clarity about how to have a conversation with this client. And something came to her mind and she got quiet and she said, okay, is that a good way to have a conversation with this client? Will that be helpful? And she would listen to her intuitive guidance about whether, yes, that was a good way to proceed. Now, your intuitive guidance, it will speak back to you in very calm, clear knowing. It won't be anxious and sharp and jagged. So she could clearly know if that was an idea that, yes, would help her get a better outcome with this client. So the part about enjoying the journey, which is my brother's life advice, she shared with me that it was empowering to her, that every day she could feel a difference. Every day she dug a little deeper into these emotions and felt a transformation, felt her ability to purposefully be able to transform them and have them be in alignment with what she wanted. So she was able to transform and shift that which she didn't want to that which she did. Now, I have a remembering of a conversation that I had, a couple of conversations with a friend of mine who was shifting jobs. So Jason was his name, and he needed to shift jobs because he needed a job that would be friendly to his needs for his family with his young kids. And his current job, which he loved, was not set up in a way that he could have a flexible work schedule. So he needed a job that had that. But he was thankful to have this great job that he really loved. But he was stuck and he just couldn't seem to make progress on getting a different job. So when I asked him then to be in touch with the multiple layers of feelings that he was clearly and easily could identify the joy and the gratitude he had in the job that he was currently in. He could also identify that I want a better job, and he could feel the hopefulness of that. So all those were great, where he could calmly and quietly get in touch and activate and be purposeful with those emotions for clarity on what he wanted. But underneath that, he also had some sadness and disappointment because he didn't really want to leave this job. And he was glossing over those feelings, just hoping they would disappear. But it was those feelings that were keeping him stuck, that were keeping him from reaching out and really securing a job that would be a better fit for him. So he needed to be in touch with, he needed to be in touch with the sadness he felt and the disappointment that he felt in leaving a job that he really liked. He shared with me later that, yes, when he allowed himself to own that, to be in touch and to be real with himself about the sadness and the disappointment in that, it was easier for him to just shift that and say, I'm thankful that I've had as many years as I've had with this job that I've loved. And he was able to affirm and clarify a vision for himself. And in that clarity of vision, he could then do step 3, which is tuning in to his intuitive guidance on how to get the job that he really wanted, that was a match for him for his family needs. He did end up with that job, and he is very happy. So I wanted to share that. And then there's another story again of a friend of mine. I've done counseling with people that pay me to counsel over the years, and then I just talk with friends. And this friend called me one day, and again, I helped her get in touch with the journey and the joy of the journey. She had received news that her spouse had cancer. And it was a very upsetting news to receive, of course. And she could easily get in touch with her feelings of gratitude for this wonderful spouse that she has, and her desire and her love and her care for wanting to care for this lovely person in her life. That was easy for her to get in touch with those powerful emotions of smooth, hopeful waves of energy. It was harder for her every day to allow herself, but she did, when my encouragement, allowed herself to get in touch with the more difficult, challenging emotions. And as you can imagine, this isn't going to transform in just one day. So she had to check in with herself every day. Some days, her checking in was worry about how she could be helpful to her husband, and she needed clarity and guidance on that. She wanted to calm the worry by knowing, for her, what could she do that would be helpful to him? And how could she be a presence to him that would calm him? So some days she tuned in with those desires and the worry that she had around that. In the process, some days she also had worry about her own future, her own financial well-being, and her life and what her life would look like on the other side of not having her husband with her, because it was a terminal diagnosis and it was going to be some time when her husband wouldn't be with her. So she was worried and fearful about that. And her guidance every day gave her some ideas and thoughts of who to talk to, ideas to pursue, some calmness in being in touch with her intuitive guidance for these ideas. And then I reminded her about the process. As she's in touch with these ideas and these thoughts about who to talk to and what help to get, I reminded her that that is the exact guidance that she will use when the time comes and her husband is no longer with her and she is wondering, what do I do? And perhaps she feels fearful, and perhaps she's needing clarity on the best decisions to make. So it was a process that when she owned that process of being able to be in touch with the intuitive guidance that comes along with your energy waves, calmly and clearly knowing what you want and being calm and clear to pay attention to your intuitive guidance, you feel a boost of power in that process because you know you always can be in touch with the guidance that you need to create what you really want in your life at that moment in time with the challenges that you have at that moment in time. So please know that transforming multiple layers of emotions inside of you, some of them are already there in being powerful and calm and smooth and even. Some of them are jagged and need some attention to get into the calm and powerful, smooth, even waves of energy. That it's a process. That journey of life always does bring challenges. It never is going to stop that process where you have some challenges present for you. But when you are in touch with your power to activate, purposely activate waves of energy that can connect you with the guidance and connect you with the ideas and the knowing and the clarity for how to proceed every day, you can enjoy the journey of the process. You can rest and relax in knowing that you have what you need. You have the guidance you need. It may not be easy. Challenges are not easy, but you have the guidance you need. And you can feel the joy of that transformation and feel the joy of knowing that you always have that available to you. And as you work your process day by day and you feel a little bit greater power each time you're able to make a transformation that you want to make, you can have some rest and ease and enjoyment in the journey of life. And as my brother would say, enjoy the journey. So I ask you to enjoy the process of transforming multiple layers of emotion so that you can connect with the guidance you need to have everything in life that you want. You can shift your emotions and you can live a very powerful life.